that ended up coming up with a package of recommendations that was passed by the Congress. My personal view is we're going to have to do the same thing again. We're going to have a commission that will engage the American people with the facts, the truth, the tough choices, help them understand that if we do nothing, what are the consequences of that? But then there are better ways to be able to reform the program to exceed the expectations of every generation of Americans, which we can go into. The latest trustees report came out in June last month, and it was late as usual. Most things in Washington are late, and it predicted that the Old Age Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, which is the major trust fund for Social Security, will go to zero in 2032, the end of 2032, calendar 2032. And if that happens, then there will be an automatic 22 to 28% cut in benefits, depending upon whose estimates you want to go by. If they end up deciding they want to borrow money from the other Social Security Trust Fund, the so-called Disability Insurance Trust Fund, which is in much better financial condition, they could delay the date of insolvency to 2034 and reduce the amount of across-the-board cut that would be necessary to 17%. But quite frankly, neither one of those scenarios are desirable. And so I think we're going to have another commission, and hopefully we will get one. I'm trying to push to see if we can get one in the so-called lame duck session, which is between the election and the seating of the new Congress, because we don't know what the result of the election is going to be, whether the Republicans are still going to be in charge of the House and the Senate, or one or none of those two bodies, and therefore there's a need to try to resolve that, and there's a hesitancy to try to deal with this issue before the midterm elections. But I will tell you, the next presidential election, which is 2028, we'll have to deal with this, because the next president will have to deal with the fact that the major trust fund for Social Security will go to zero during their term. They might could delay it a little bit, but I think I and others are going to try to make sure that while this has not been a major part of campaigns to date, that for 2028 it will be. And as you mentioned, I've got a new book coming out called Saving Social Security in America's Future: Common Sense Solutions, which will not only provide the background, but also a way forward, what needs to be done and how to get it done, not just with regard to Social Security, but healthcare, defense, taxes, government organization operations, immigration, education, a number of critical issues where Washington has been stalemated for far too long.
So on this new book, you're actually going to discuss more than Social Security. Social Security is just one part of the puzzle of a failing fiscal government. The other one, of course, Medicare. This is what I like, having things right behind each other. After Social Security runs out of money, the following year, Medicare trust fund runs out of money. So does this next president in 2028, are they going to have to address both these failing issues almost simultaneously?
They should. And what I've advocated for, Nick, is I've advocated for a single commission that would engage the American people with the facts, the truth, the tough choices, solicit input, set the table for a tough vote in Congress. But I've also advocated for two sets of recommendations. One for Social Security standing alone, to make it solvent, sustainable, secure, and to be able to consider demographic trends, which were not adequately considered by the Greenspan Commission. And secondly, another set of recommendations that considers everything else, healthcare, defense, other spending, revenues, etc., with the idea of trying to come up with a package of recommendations that will reduce debt to GDP to a reasonable and sustainable level over the next 15 years. That's what I think we need to do. That's what I'm pushing for. And I'm hoping that we can make progress on that in the so-called lame duck session. because if you think that Congress is going to deal with this issue in the regular order on a piecemeal basis, they can't even pass the appropriations bills. I mean, through the regular order on a piecemeal basis. So it's time to get real.
Okay, so after they find out two legs of the stool are broken, Social Security and Medicare, then they go to the third leg to bail them out, which is the federal government, and they, lo and behold, when they get there, the cupboard is bare, as the national debt's 40 trillion. And so all of a sudden, the third leg of the stool is gone. So in your book, you have a way to address all threes of these stools that are basically going to vaporize the U.S. fiscal system.
Yeah, the book draws upon my extensive experience in citizen education engagement in 47 states, D.C., several territories, and several countries. And basically, it's a wake-up call that, the status quo is unacceptable and unsustainable. It's a call to action that we need to engage in a number of different reforms, and also talking about how to get these things done, not just what needs to be done, but how to get them done. And thirdly, it's a way forward. And that way forward includes a range of illustrative reforms, and I underline the word illustrative. It's a way, not necessarily the way, that achieved super majority votes from representative groups of voters around the country. And so it includes things like budget controls, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, healthcare, defense, taxes, government organization operations, and political reforms. And as a supplement to that, we also have some material on immigration reform, education reform, energy reform, a few other areas that we've been stalemated on for far too long. We're on an imprudent and unsustainable fiscal path, and we now have a republic, which, as you know, Nick, is not a democracy. It's a representative democracy. We don't have a direct democracy, and that was intentional by our founders. But we now have a republic that's not representative of nor responsive to the general public, and therefore we don't just need policy reforms. We need political reforms in order to revitalize our republic and to have a system that is truly representative of and responsive to the general public, rather than the wingnuts on both sides.
Good idea. And we have our group on both sides of the aisle. We're going to bring in Sasha Starr, who is with Modern Investing on the Pod TV network. So he knows a little bit about investments from Canada. We're also going to bring in Dr. Sharif, who does the World Talent Economic Forum on the Pod TV network. And then Jatovi McDuffie, who's the voice of the hurricanes and the voice of reason. So we'll bring him in from the Raleigh-Durham area. And I guess we'll start with Sasha, because Canada is our neighbors to the north. And what are the Canadians looking at when they see the United States of America and their fiscal issues? Mr. Sasha Starr.
Well, situation has changed a lot in the last year and a half since Trump is at power. And the situation between Canada and US, to put it mildly, is unfriendly. It's a new form of saying elbows up, invented probably in Canada in the last few months. And definitely it doesn't bode well for Canada, actually for both countries. The major situation is developing with this outer pact between two countries, actually three, because Mexico is part of it too, or was part of it. You'll see how it goes. So for Canada, the situation is basically this. About out of, I think, what is overall input 11 million cars a year manufactured in North America, Canadians are buying 2 million cars. So they're saying that approximately some production facilities reflecting the percentage of 2 million versus 11 should be in Canada, especially that Canada has very efficient the facilities, very good workforce, well trained, inexpensive compared to America. And Trump's position is no, we don't need Canada to manufacture any cars. We can manufacture all of them. And Canadians, if they want to buy, it's fine. If they don't want to buy, that's just as fine. So if that's the case and it would be impossible to change, then Canada is forced by the foreign cars, whether it's European, Chinese, Japanese, or any others, use their first-class facilities to produce more of these cars in Canada. Chinese agreed to that gladly, and I think some Europeans would agree to that. And in this case, we are coming to the point of no return. There will be no longer facilities in Canada available to produce American cars, and factually, the buying of American-produced cars by Canadians will gravitate to zero. That's where we are now. What will be the end at the end of the day? Well, I don't know. Let's hear what you think about it.
Well, let me respond. Well, first, let's talk about the fiscal issue. The fiscal issue has not changed dramatically in the last 2 years, because we've been on an improved and unsustainable path for a number of years. The last president who was fiscally responsible was Bill Clinton. When I came into office as Comptroller General of the United States, we had a surplus. We had a surplus for 4 years in a row. We actually paid down debt 2 of those 4 years. Things started spinning out of control in 2003, which I can go into if people want me to. Things got much worse after I left as Comptroller General in 2008. Debt to GDP has exploded and is projected to explode further. And no president since Bill Clinton has done a good job with regard to the nation's finances. We're spending too much money. Everybody wants to cut taxes and increase spending. The result of that hemorrhages the bottom line. And so, we've got a serious issue. We've had it for a long time. I would agree with Sasha that relations between the U.S. and Canada have deteriorated under this administration. Trump wants to bring back as many jobs as he can to the United States as part of his America First agenda. Importantly, America First doesn't mean America only, but it does mean to consider, the interest of the United States first. Those relations have been strained. There's absolutely no question about that. And by the way, Canada is slowly reducing its investments in U.S. Treasury securities. It hit an all-time high, I think, in about September of 2025 at about $476 billion. The latest number I have is April of 2026. It was down to $397 billion. So they've slowly been divesting their holdings in U.S. Treasury securities. And if you look at the largest holders of U.S. Treasury securities, which includes Japan, China, the United Kingdom, I could go on, they ought to be concerned about our deteriorating financial condition. And that's one of the issues that I will bring home in this new book is this has global implications. If the United States ever has a debt crisis, I can assure you the fallout will not be constrained to the United States. The fallout will be felt around the world, and it would be in the form of a global depression. And I think we need to do everything we can to avoid that, and I will continue to do everything I can to help avoid that.
And we're going to move around the world, and we're going to go to Asia and Bangladesh and see Dr. Sharif, who's head of the World Talent Economic Forum in Dhaka, which is soon to be the largest city in the world. So what are your thoughts about the U.S. Financial position, Dr. Sharif?
Yeah, thank you. As an economist and a student of the economy, I want to add some point as I have the opportunity to explore around the world and engage with Asia Pacific, engage with these Europeans and North Americans and Africa and Middle East. So there is some point I identified as an economics student that we have to build up our economy based on the betterment of the 90% of the people. Most of the cases, all of the countries around the world, they only focus on elite, the rich people, the rich community. We want to make more billionaires, more trillionaires. It's very worried that US economy has all of the billionaires, right? In US economy, in California, in everywhere, in Texas, all of the billionaires and $1 trillion company in US economy. On the other hand, we are observing that USA has $40 trillion loan. The same way, even in Bangladesh, I'm trying to fix this problem. We do focus on microfinance. We have around 171 million people. Definitely, we have a strong engagement with USA and Middle East and European markets. Even China Belt and Road Initiative is very active in our economy. But I do focus on wisdom economy, wisdom-based city. And it's getting very popular in our countries. Even in the startup industry, I do focus on wisdom-based leaders. Because without ethical practice in politics, in corporations, in academia, in NGOs, everywhere, without ethical practice, without the concern, without the engagement of the wisdom and all of the innovations, we cannot create impact for the communities. Whatever we build, we go for globalization, we go industry 5.0, we go industry 6.0, we build up all of the innovations. We bring artificial intelligence, quantum computing, we go space industries and so on. Where is the wisdom? Where is the ethical practice? Where is the humanity? So what Dr. David Walker has, Nick Palvetta has, all of the speaker has, this is your wisdom, which is the most powerful component in this planet. Human is the most powerful things in this planet. So we have to focus on the human wisdom. Definitely, I want to welcome technology. I want to welcome AI and social media, these data centers, these space industries, these innovations and everything. But we need ethical leaders. It's happened even in Bangladesh. We always believe all of our politicians, and after 15 and 16 years, we identify we lose everything. What is the absent? The main issue is lack of wisdom, lack of humanity, empathy and sympathy. Because why I come to this planet? I come to this planet for serve for the society. That is the things I write books, Wisdom City. We are building wisdom-based cities in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. This is first time happening around the world. Definitely we invite all of the innovations, all of the Western world technologies. We want to partners with all of the venture capital and corporations and everything. But who will run this city? Human wisdom. Who will run this business incubation? Human wisdom. Who will run this politics? Human wisdom. I think USA has all of the brilliant things, all of the brilliant peoples, all of the best brain in this planet. They are in USA, in California, in Stanford, in Harvard, in MIT, in NASA, and everywhere. But without wisdom, you cannot bring success for these societies. So this is my polite and humble request. Let's focus on our talent economy. Let's focus on our restructuring this planet. How we can build a better community. So what's your thought about that, Honorable David Walker?
Well, Dr. Sharif, several things. One, I appreciate you saying that the United States has all of the talent, but we don't, okay? I will say this. The United States has more than its fair share of billionaires, given the percentage of population that we have. The United States has more than its fair share of top companies in the world, given total global GDP. The United States has more than its fair share of innovation, as compared to global data. But I would respectfully suggest that unlike when our country was founded, and this weekend we celebrated our 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence from England, that unlike at the beginning of our republic, um, we have less than our fair share of true leaders, in my view, in politics. We had way more than our fair share at the beginning of the republic. We have too many people that are focused on today. We have too many people that are not concerned with their stewardship responsibilities to leave things better off and better positioned for the future. We have growing gaps between the haves and the have-nots, and we need to address those issues in order to have a more equitable society. At the same point in time, to have one that is based on some of our founding principles, which is limited but effective government, individual liberty and opportunity, personal responsibility and accountability, rule of law and equal justice under the law, fiscal responsibility, intergenerational equity, and stewardship. Those are our founding principles. We need to return to that. We also need to recognize that while we're clearly, the most powerful superpower today, that we need alliances, and that many of the greatest challenges that the world faces do not respect geopolitical boundaries, and therefore we need to partner for progress in order to be able to not only advance ourselves but to advance others around the world, and to deal with some of the inequities that exist. So, look, I've had the good fortune of traveling to every continent, over 100 cities, over 100 countries in every state. And you don't know how good or bad you have it until you compare it to something else. And I believe that we have the best country, but I also believe we're not as good as we think we are. And I believe that we've got some serious challenges that are affecting our future that we need to start coming to grips with. And our political system needs to be reformed in order to enable us to be able to come to grips with it, because right now it is paralyzed.
Okay, we're going to bring in the wisdom from Jacoby McDuffie in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area and see what his opinions are relating to the U.S. fiscal issues.
Toby, can I just say one thing real quick? The most valuable asset our country or any country has is its people, the human capital. And AI is going to have a profound impact, positive and negative, with regard to all of us. But one of the things that AI can't do, it does not have emotional intelligence, and only humans.
Oh, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with that. I mean, I'm not really an advocate for AI due to the fact that it does harm the human capital in more ways than one. It's not just taking the jobs, but it's also taking the water. We're sitting here in a nasty drought, so yeah, we're going to use the data centers to increase that drought. We're also in the biggest heat wave and the heat bubble. It increases the temperature in the air. The data centers increase the temperature in the location that it's set in another 2 to 3 degrees temperature wise, which is huge. Then you talk about, I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues with AI that I have. So yeah, I'm not an advocate with AI. So I'm right there with you on that one. Where I wanted to go to, because you were talking about one, the not respecting the geopolitical borders, but also number two, Sasha brought up the cars, and that's one of the backbone industries of the U.S. And which I find interesting is that Tesla, of course, well, what Sasha brought up about the Chinese automakers now moving into Canada. If they make the same progress that they did in China as they did in Canada, that's going to be unbelievable, because the EV market in China is phenomenal. The things that they can do with the EV cars, it really puts to shame to a lot of the EV cars in the US. However, the part that I want to get to is mainly because that backbone of our country is going to begin to struggle with the increase in the Chinese made cars, the EV cars as well, going into Canada because of that trade deal. Because I think they said 49,000 cars have already been sold, the EV Chinese makers and stuff like that. In terms of respecting the geopolitical borders and the tariffs and so on and so forth, Tesla right now, being a quote unquote US company, is one of the biggest offenders in that, because they're not actually utilizing US made Teslas, the Model 3s coming out of the US to go to Canada. They're disrespecting those borders in that same fashion because they're actually using Chinese made Tesla Model 3s to go into Canada. So how many other car makers are going to do the same exact thing, and how many will begin to fall to the wayside because of the loss of the USMCA, which is going to fall apart, the tariffs that are having problems there, and now the Chinese EV market that has been taking off?
Time will tell, Jatovi. Time will tell. And by the way, we can't forget that we were supposed to be talking about Social Security too, but go ahead. Nick, you're muted. And I know we've
Yeah, we're
got
talking about Social Security, Medicare, and the financial condition of the United States. We're going to bring in a financial advisor from the California area, Daniel Medina, and see what she has to think when it comes to the fiscal responsibility of the United States of America and the Social Security Trust Fund running out of money in the year 2032. So, Daniel, you're on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So, it's kind of shocking to me. I was listening to Bill talk about really generosity at the end of the day, right? About billionaires having all this money. The government has done a very poor job for a long time on budgeting. And so that's kind of where we're at with Social Security. It's embarrassing. I remember being in law school, going through the budget and thinking, this is a joke. And I'm very shocked that more people in our country have not spoken up about where we spend money, right? So the number one government in the world can't budget their funds. And I think that this is just a great shame to everybody in America. I'm not sure, and I've always thought this, and I know there's a lot of people in the finance industry, why we don't have financial planners in the government. It's kind of shocking to me. We have people with no finance background deciding budgets, and it's left us at a huge deficit. And to our point, like this weekend was the 4th of July. I always have mixed feelings on this, believe it or not. I'm a dual citizen. My mom is from Derry, Ireland. And when you start to read up on just the history of banking and being involved in the slave trade, there's so many issues here that I think we've never unpacked, right? And then we just kind of piled on top of it. But the fact is, most of the people that have made these decisions forever have nothing to do and have very little knowledge around money or how the economy really works. And so we just have congressmen kind of putting in what they want for budgeting. And here we're left with Social Security, which is bankrupt, which obviously I pay into and will never get money from, right? And then we have alternatives like that I know Nick and I deal quite a bit with pensions and qualified money. The shame is there's a lot of people that will depend on Social Security, that depend on it right now, and that it is coming up. I think the only way, Nick, to solve this crisis is doing an overhaul on a financial budget, but it can't come from within the government at this point because they've been so reckless. So my real question, I guess, would be, and maybe I'll pose this, who audits them, right? Like when this goes really wrong, who's really going to check the government about their budget? Because at the end of the day, we have the hearings, I've been in them, right? There's all these different things that we can do, but they're all in it together. And so we really don't have anybody standing up for the American people and actually dictating where the funds go. So right now it's a crap show, right? And it's been this way for a long time. But again, 21 years old going through the budget, I'm shocked. I remember Hillary giving all this money to owls and condom machines. And I mean, it was a joke. We used to write press releases about it in our offices. But at the same time, what do we do now to clean this up? And I think the only answer would be an external audit of the budget.
Let me jump in, okay? There are two sides. One side is the overall fiscal issue.
Yep.
Increase in spending and our finances and things of that nature. And the other side is Social Security standing alone, all right?
Yep.
And by the way, you will get Social Security. I'll come back to that, all right? On the overall situation, when you look at the Constitution, which is our governing document,
Mhm.
there's only one thing that the Congress is supposed to do every year. Only one. And that's pass all the appropriations bills. The last time they passed all the appropriations bills before the beginning of the fiscal year was 1996. And they're not going to do it this year. And they've only done it 4 times in my lifetime. So that is an F minus. Okay. Secondly, unlike most states, all but one state has either a constitutional or a statutory requirement for a balanced budget. The U.S. federal government does not. All right. And, while there are problems in many states with regard to how they define a balanced budget, most of them defining on a cash flow basis. I'm a CPA, so I know the difference between accrual accounting and cash accounting. But you might ask, well, if all these states have balanced budgets, then how do we have a number of states that are basket cases financially? And it's because of how they define what a balanced budget is. For example, you can not make your pension contributions. You can not pre-fund retiree health care. You can, if you're really audacious, you can end up going out and borrow money on revenue anticipation bonds, take that cash and call it, you've balanced your budget. So therefore, you've got states like Connecticut, you've got states like New Jersey, you've got states like Illinois. Those are the bottom 3 from a financial standpoint, who say they have balanced budgets, but they're basket cases from a financial standpoint. All right. If you look at the United States federal government in 1912, total federal spending was 2.5% of the economy. It was small. Again, I said before, limited but effective federal government, 2.5%. And a significant majority of that was for defense, which cannot be delegated to the states, if you will. Today, the federal government is almost 10 times bigger as a percentage of the economy than it was in 1912, and it's growing dramatically. Of course, in 1912, we didn't have social insurance programs like we do now, among other things. We didn't have an income tax. We didn't have the Federal Reserve. We didn't have direct election of senators. They were appointed by the states to protect states' rights. And so if you fast forward to today, the federal government's almost 10 times bigger. In 1912, I think it was 3% of the federal budget was not controlled. And that was interest that we had to pay on our debt. We got to pay what we got to pay. We got to pay market rates, right? 97% of the federal budget was controlled and limited. Today, of the direct spending, only about 25% of the federal budget is controlled by annual appropriations that are limited, right? Everything, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, we're written a blank check. They're not controlled. We spend whatever we have to spend. You can't call that a budget. But in addition to that, there are $2.2 trillion a year in so-called tax preferences. I call them expenditures, okay? Deductions, exemptions, credits, exclusions, 2.2 trillion, way more than Social Security, way more than the deficit, okay? 2.2 trillion, and they're mandatory spending too, in effect, of a different way, foregone revenue, if you will. So we've totally lost control of our finances. My view is there's only one way you're going to force the Congress to restore fiscal sanity and sustainability, and that's a constitutional amendment. But the constitutional amendment should not be what the states have, annual budget balance. That doesn't make sense at the federal level, plus there's all kinds of loopholes in it, okay? What we need to do is to focus on the metric that matters the most, debt to GDP. And why do I say that? Because if you grow the denominator faster than the numerator, you're making progress even if the numerator goes up. And it also doesn't tell the Congress how to solve the numerator problem. How much of it is mandatory spending reduction? How much of it is discretionary spending reduction? And how much of it is additional revenues? It just says you got to solve it. And if you don't solve it, things happen automatically. And when I think saying things happen automatically, you stop indexing, you end up having some cuts, you end up having some tax surcharges, things happen. Because right now, things don't happen that the American people can see and feel. And and politicians will tell you, well, we don't have a problem, we're gonna be okay. But last thing on this, and then I'll quickly go to Social Security. Japan's the largest foreign holder of our debt, and they're stable. UK recently passed China. China has been divesting of U.S. debt, and so the bottom line is there are macro trends that are going on, and this is not just something that we should be concerned about in our country, but the people who are investing in our debt should be concerned about it. By the way, that includes pension funds, that includes insurance companies, that includes a variety of players who have significant investments in U.S. debt. Social Security, last thing. I was a trustee of Social Security and Medicare for 5 years. You're going to get Social Security. In fact, we can reform Social Security and exceed the expectations of every generation of Americans. And let me tell you why. Because young people, and I will put you in that category, Danielle, okay? Everything is a comparative basis, okay? Young people don't think they're going to get it, and they're wrong. They're going to get it, but they're going to get it probably at a different age and maybe in a different replacement rate, but they're going to get it, all right? Social Security is arguably the most important and definitely the most popular social insurance program the federal government has. It's actually 3 programs. It's retirement income, it's disability income, it's survivor's income. A lot of people don't focus on that, but it's actually 3 insurance programs, rather than just a retirement program. And politically and economically, it's not acceptable to let it fail. It's just not. All right. So the second thing is seniors, or seasoned Americans, seasoned Americans, they think they're going to get taken advantage of. There are other words I could use, but I won't use them. And they're wrong too, because politically that just would not be acceptable. So what's going to end up happening is very similar to what happened in '83. We're going to end up making changes that get phased in over about 20 years that avoids an across-the-board cut that involves both additional revenues and benefit adjustments, but prospective benefit adjustments, meaning nobody's benefit's going to get cut, but the benefit's going to be constrained going forward, or maybe different going forward, okay? And it's kind of like how it works in the pension world, as you know, you've got an accrued benefit rule, right? Kind of like that concept. And so everybody will get more than they think they're going to get. I call that a win. But the problem is that we don't have leaders in Washington. We have laggards.
Yep. Hey, just
Yeah,
really
we also have a question from Mark Way, a producer at the Pod TV Network.
how you doing? I had a question for Danielle and everything along those lines, because I did do a little research after I saw that you had brought her onto the show and everything along those lines. So I know one thing that you talk about, Nick, is the need for fiscal education. So I wanted to hear Danielle's thoughts about the need for fiscal education in our high school and our college level, because I don't remember taking that many fiscal courses when we went to Marquette, and that's where I graduated from. And then I also noticed that you are a woman-owned business, because I did notice that you were the COO and everything, but I also noticed that you have a lot of minorities that are in your leadership and everything like that. I'm wondering your thoughts around the importance of having women leaders and also minority leaders in the fiscal field, because I did notice that I think it was your CFO was African-American and a couple of your other folks were African-American as well. So I did notice that you are a very diverse company, for lack of a better term, and everything like that. Your thoughts about the importance of diversity and your thoughts around the need for fiscal education.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's huge to me. I'm actually half Black as well. So my aunt was the first woman VP at Citibank, and she worked in New York. We helped numerous entrepreneurs in Seattle, numerous billionaires now. But I think one of the really big things that we were always very, very strong about as a family is education, right? So I think the hard thing right now is for an outsider looking in, even at Social Security or the budget, is they don't know what a budget is. They don't know what a balanced budget looks like, kind of to your point as well, nor does the American public. I mean, we meet so many people every day that are successful business owners that really don't understand a balance sheet, right? Or what does that mean to them? What is leverage? What is good leverage? What's bad leverage? And there really is no education for this in schools. Like my daughter is now a second year at Penn State, and then I have another daughter who's at medical school at ASU. Neither one of them learned anything about finance except through me. And that's alarming to me, right? And it was very similar for me. Luckily, I had my aunts and family that could help raise me up in finance, but there is a lot of very successful people that know nothing about money, let alone just in general how to budget, right? So a lot of times when we take people in on our team, they have different backgrounds. We have one that was a very high level Army official that worked in intelligence, and he works on our team. He's like, Danielle, I know nothing about money. And I think it's very shocking that how do you make it through all these systems and have no background in finance, right? Because it's kind of key no matter where you are. You have to understand basics. There's very few schools that teach it. And so how we have not integrated this into, even just training on Social Security, what is it? Where does that money come from? Like if you ask people taking Social Security, most people don't know that, right? And so I think this basic education is just not there. It's something we've avoided. I think a lot of the avoidance is accountability, right? So as soon as people are educated, now people have something to hold you to. And so I think there's a very large region we have left it out of education, especially in the minority circles, is they don't want to be held accountable. And so a big part of what we do is educating people. We do webinars, we go to schools, we hold classes. Education's key, right? People can make choices from there, but without the background knowledge. And so I think that it's definitely something that the government needs to take notice of in schools. Of we have to educate people. We're educating them about lots of random things that I wish they wouldn't. But I'm like, we can't tell them how the stock market works. It's kind of shocking to me. So,
Danielle, let me jump in and piggyback on that, and then I know Sasha and maybe Sharif, Dr. Sharif's got a hand up. First, in the book, one of our many recommendations is that there should be mandatory financial literacy and civic responsibility classes before you can graduate from high school. Because I believe that that's one of the reasons that we have the dysfunctionality that we have today. People don't understand the basics about finance. They don't understand what their responsibilities are as a citizen in this republic. And it's caused us to be dysfunctional at many levels, the individual level, all the way up to the federal level. The second thing is, let me give you an example of if Uncle Sam was a real person, what his finances would look like based upon the audited financial statements of the U.S. government as of September 30, 2025. Uncle Sam made $52,000. He spent $73,000. So he was in the hole $21,000. He had total liabilities of $478,000. He had unfunded obligations of $884,000. So total liabilities and unfunded obligations of $1,362,000. But don't worry, he had $61,000 in assets. So he was only underwater $1,301,000. And guess where those numbers come from? The audited financial statements of the U.S. government. And all I did was eliminate 8 zeros. Sasha, I think you had your, and then Dr. Sharif. You're muted. You're muted, Sasha.
Oh, how it's happened. Okay.
You're okay now. You're okay now.
Dave, I agree with everything what you just said. However, I don't want to rain on your parade. Let me tell you that for majority of Americans, financial education is a complete waste of time. And actually, it's dangerous waste of time because there is a passive waste of time that you just don't do anything and you go on with your life. Now, the real dangerous waste of time is when you got a little bit of education over here and over there, and you know a little bit about this and a little bit about that. You know a little bit about stock market and a little bit about penny stocks and crypto and something else, and you lose all your money in a matter of 2-3 months. So this is a great danger of financial education. It's better if people understand that this is a very sophisticated area. They need financial advisors. And so, oh, by the way, majority of people who are living on minimum wages and getting tax-free tips, they don't need financial education. They have nothing to invest and probably will not have for the rest of their lives. Why do you need financial education? Unless you want to teach it at school, that's a different story, but they're not going to do even that. So these people don't need. Now, the middle class, I'm not talking about wealthy Americans that can have armies of lawyers and advisors or so on. I'm talking about middle class. Okay, it's better if they do have some, even not education, some at least basic information. But it's available elsewhere. It's available on YouTube. It's available if you can sign up for some processes. So you can get, if you really want to get into it, you can get minimum financial education and use it to your advantage, hopefully successfully. But even these people need financial advisors more than anybody else. I'm done. Thank you.
Let me clarify what I'm saying. I'm not talking about sophisticated investment, courses. You're right. People need to understand basics, and they need professional advice, independent professional advice, for a number of areas. I'm talking about basics like budgeting. Okay. And let me give you an example. I live in a state that actually does require financial education before you graduate from high school. But when our daughter was in junior high school and was taking that course, she had to put together a budget based upon what she thought she wanted to be when she grew up, how much money she would make, and then how much does it cost to live, and then basically filling out a budget. Right? They left out 3 things on the budget. She thought she was in great shape. They left out 3 things. Number 1, taxes. So she was planning based on gross income rather than net income. Okay. Secondly, they left out savings. And thirdly, they left out charitable contributions. So it's not just a matter of, what you do, but how you do it in order to be able to make it effective. But Dr. Sharif, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Honorable David Walker. This is very interesting discussions. And as an academician, I just introduce things. I always love to take actions. Let's say in Bangladesh, in Chittagong Engineering University, in IIT, Indian Institute of Technologies, and all of the universities and so on, I'm introducing this new educational model. Because what we are doing, I'm completely agree with Sasha and all of you, with this education activities. It's actually 200 years ago. So we build up these things for creating employees. Now we have the time, we have to restructuring the educations. We already launched our 6-month program. Even I want to invite you all as a mentor for my student, for the youth community. We do focus on 20% theory, 80% practice. You have to make your hand dirty. You have to engage with the community. You have to create new things. You have to go for commercialize the whole process, what it called talent economy. And definitely you have to be good ethical leaders. People going to trust you. Financial institutions going to trust you. Second thing, Asia is the future. Whatever you are doing, I request all of my American friends, what you have in your hands and your mind and all of the things, let's focus on Asia Pacific. This is the future. There is no choice. So you have to collaborate. No more competitions. As much as possible, we can collaborate. We can gain more success. Third things. Why China becomes so powerful? Because of sovereignty. The sovereignty, their own fund and everything, and their huge populations in Asia Pacific. So that's why I request everyone, you have to increase the sovereign with the engagement of microfinance. Small is beautiful, less is more. You have to focus on Bangladesh. You have to focus on Pakistan. You have to focus on India. You have to focus on Brazil or Nigeria and Africa and Malaysia and Indonesia. That is the way you can engage with the virgin markets. Change the whole education system. Change the financial modelings. Do not run your economical things behind all of the oligarchs like billionaires, the trillionaires, the $1 trillion company. Let's focus on small. Small is beautiful. Asia is the future. Engage with Asia. Do not go for fighting. Engagement with the fighting useless. What we see in this Iran. Engagement with the war actually useless. Everywhere. So as you are from the big countries, that is the things we are working. We are practicing ethical society. We restructuring our educations through 20% theory, 80% practice, and we do focus on microfinance. We do focus on Asian market. I want to invite you all. You can trust me. In between 10 years, if U.S. economy, U.S. strategy, U.S. policymaker, U.S. economists follow World Health Economic Forum new innovation approach in Asia Pacific, your economics problem will be solved with the virgin economy. Thank you.
Well, I want to come back to a couple of things you said, okay? And some of it was what you said earlier. The United States does not have a strategic framework for determining what is it trying to accomplish and how does it measure success, whether it's economics, national security, foreign policy, or domestic issues. It is critically needed, and they need to be outcome-based. But one of the reasons we don't have it is something you said earlier, Dr. Sharif. People don't want to be held accountable for results, all right? But all the more reason why we need it, because we're on an imprudent and unsustainable path, all right? And we're going to have to partner for progress with other countries and other people in order to solve a number of our challenges, if you will. Last thing I want to say on this is, you know, you've used the word ethics several times, okay? And to me, when I look for leadership, there are three different levels of leadership. There are people who say, I'm not going to do something that's illegal. That is the floor. That is the minimum standard. Above legality is ethics. And above ethics is morality. Don't crawl on the floor and try to just be legal. Strive to be ethical and moral. That's what leadership is. And leadership is getting things done with and through other people. It's looking to the future, and it's capitalizing on opportunities and mitigating risk through other people. It's not management. Leadership is very different than management. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of either in Congress.
We don't have enough of either. Hey, Daniel, just really quickly, and all along those lines, and this, maybe Honorable Walker has something to say about this as well. But one of the things that I might slightly disagree with Sasha about is the need for fiscal literacy and all along those lines. Because you mentioned being half African American or half Black and everything like that. And I worked for one of the large Black Wall Street companies, because I work for the Hayti Heritage Center when I'm not doing this pod TV thing, and that is part of the Durham Black Wall Street. And you know that most of the Black Wall Streets, whether it was Durham, whether it was Tulsa, whether it was Rosewood, it was the Black banks that actually may help them thrive during that era and everything like that. So I just wanted your thoughts around that, because I do think that that's something that we don't have enough of, even though there are growing Latin American credit unions and even African American credit unions, but they don't seem to be enough of a strive in our banking communities as there used to be and everything like that. But I just wanted your take on that, Danielle.
Yeah. Well, one of the great interesting things about banking is they only lend to people that already have a ton of money, right? I mean, it's kind of one of those things. So I think as far as education goes too, you have to educate everybody. That would be like somebody profiling me and not knowing that I would run $1 billion company. Does that make sense? And just thinking I'm counting her out. She's young, she's mixed, whatever weird thing they have in their mind, right? So we don't get to pick and choose who gets educated. People get to decide what they're going to do with their education, right? It's not the same thing. And so I'm very big on everybody getting educated. You don't know. Like my daughter just got profiled out of a school They don't know she started her own nonprofit to end human trafficking when she was 6, and it has a clothing line. Does that make sense? But I think what's interesting about this is there's just a lot of this prerequisite mindset that if you're not at a certain level, you won't obtain it. Right. And I'm like, that's what we're trying to shatter. Why can't people just be like, I'm going to educate everybody? It's an ego thing. People have a fear that people will be better than them. And guess what? They will be. I mean, that's real, but that's okay. That's how America is great, is we have people able to make products and do things we would never think of ourselves, which I believe, I mean, I'm proud that I'm from Seattle. I got to see a lot of it. I loved it. But all of those people actually were willing to educate me. Like, you can bump into them on the street. Nobody cares if they're a billionaire versus worth $10. It didn't matter. They were treating you the same way. But to your point on the banking system, I mean, it's so broken, it's ridiculous. How we lend, government giving money out to banks, I get it. We don't want to collapse, but are they fiscally responsible? Are they ethical? Are they moral? The answer is no. Does that make sense? So I'm kind of a little shocked at when given shots why we don't correct, right? And I understand nobody wants the collapse of the government. I'm not proposing that either, but there should be a lot more minority-led banks. I mean, it is a fact that we have been held back since the beginning. I think it's one of the great shames of the country that we've never addressed. And tons of my family have fought in the military. And I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the country. But at the same time, I'm like, when there's an elephant in the room, you need to address this. This is not something we just sweep under the carpet and act like slavery wasn't real. We didn't oppress people. England handled this so much differently. And when you go there, you're treated so much different than you are in the US. There's places I still won't go in the South, right? So it's a real thing. And it's definitely something that we need to try to equalize, whether people like that or not. The fact that I'm a woman in finance, and I will tell you this right now, I get picked on all the time and people don't even know I'm Black. Can you imagine if they knew that as well? I mean, the amount of oppression I get, and just as a target, because they're like, you're one of a million, like there's just not rankings of top women in finance anymore. And so, or there never has been. And I think it's something that it's an issue. We have to change the mindset. We have to change the norm. And that does mean getting behind people that are in that minority spectrum and being like, look, we're going to stick up for you. We're not going to just let you get bullied. And that's a really big piece of this, right? It's just being able to back other banks that are minority owned, or, you know what I mean, starting to diversify. It doesn't mean you have to go fund everybody, but I think having a backing is so huge. Knowing that other people are standing with you really helps an economy take off, and it's only going to make us better. It's not hurting us. And so some of this is just a mindset change and accountability. I think that's a huge part of this.
And also, we're out of time. But we do want to thank the Honorable David M. Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States, our guest from Dhaka, Asia, and of course, Canada, our viewers in the United States and around the world. And we'll see you next week on Economics with the Honorable David M. Walker. Until then, keep fiscally sound. Take care. Bye-bye.